Hello, everyone. This is the Injured Workers Legal Side podcast with Richard and Paul. I'm Richard Fink, a workers' compensation specialist lawyer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Taylor. I'm a licensed paralegal by the Law Society of Ontario with specialization in workers' compensation and human rights law. If you want to reach either Richard or myself and be part of our podcast, like our special guest today, Harry Goslin, you can contact us through the links below. This week's topic is our special guest, Harry Goslin, who's the president of, and I'm going to butcher it, Ontario. I'll just let you do it, Harry.
Sure. I'm Harry Goslin, President of the Ontario Compensation Employees Union. I represent the good employees at the Workplace Safety Insurance Board and the Infrastructure Health and Safety Association.
Right. And just in case somebody was literally in a deep sleep or a coma for the past month and a half, the WSIB workers, union members, were on strike for the last month and a half. And to my understanding, it's the first time ever in over 100 years that the members went on strike. And some of the issues that they were on strike for, if I'm not mistaken, was cost of living increase, which makes me laugh about that because people always I'm like, why? Because most people don't understand how cost of living works. Training, which I was just talking to my friend Richard about, which is critically important. Not that I'm criticizing an individual. And this is something injured workers always screw up. They blame the individual decision maker when they should be blaming the system, the compensation system. If that decision maker makes a horrible decision, maybe doesn't know human rights or charter rights or something, it's often because they don't have any training. So it was interesting to hear that that was one of your demands was better training
Mhm.
and oh, of course, the most important one, more staff. So that way it would reduce the wait times in dealing with the compensation process.
So,
Or
what was
did you want to
achieved?
ask them something? Sorry.
Yeah, what was achieved in the collective agreement, the highlights?
So the wages were really what happened is the provincial government, I think, inappropriately um, got involved in negotiations with the WSIB, unlike any other time before. And they required the WSIB to have their mandate approved by the Treasury Board and then endorsed by Cabinet. So this is unprecedented because the WSIB is not funded by the taxpayers of Ontario. Whatever we negotiate has no impact on the budget of Ontario. Yet the Ford government deemed it fit to intervene, and we believe that was really all about wages, so they could try to set a pattern in the public sector negotiations. MAPCO and OPSU are coming up. MAPCO is at the bargaining table now. The wages we ended up with was 7% over the 3 years. Worked out at 275, 2.25, and 2. Um, and we believe that was well, we were told that that was the maximum that the Treasury Board had approved for WSIB to agree to. So they were very much involved, and again, we think that was inappropriate. Right up until the end, the WSIB was offering lower wage. When we went out on strike on May 21st, the WSIB was offering 4.5 over 3 years, which was really ridiculous, and nobody was getting wages like that. And we had an awful lot of concessions on the table. The WSIB was now prepared to do better. We met with them late that night and asked them to do better. They came back to us and said we choose not to. And so the collective agreement expired. They weren't interested in interest arbitration to try and avoid a strike. So first time in over 110 years, we were off on strike. The WCB doesn't call it a lockout, but it surely looked and felt like one because on day one, we had asked our membership to update all of their health and safety certificates through this learning module at work. And if anybody had expired or any other expired required mandatory certification, update those and throughout the day, then also help the injured workers. So WSIB reacted poorly and they shut them out of the system, locked them out, and sent them home. So I I don't know if I would call that a full-on strike or if I'd call that a lockout, but WSIB denies their refuses to call it a lockout. So yes, we were out for we were into our seventh week So the wages were the 7%. We had a few benefit improvements. I think the biggest changes, the hardest fought issue really was over workload. And on that front, um, WSIB refused to respect the results of what's called the Copenhagen Psychosocial Survey. It's a world recognized survey created by scientists and peer reviewed by scientists at different universities around the world. It's been used in Canada for the last 11 years. We did the initial survey in 2024. We did a follow-up earlier this year. And we are told that our results continue to be the worst in Canada, the worst the organization has seen in over the last 11 years. WCB BC just did theirs, and they have a better functioning workplace than we do. Our results show that we have a toxic workplace. Shows that there's problems with micromanagement, which is a contributor to workload, a loss of control in how you perform your job.
What do you mean by micromanagement?
Significant amount Big Brother watching. So looking over your shoulder, constant updates and summaries of what's happening. And so for a case manager, every 2 weeks they're being monitored and have to provide an update on what they're doing and receiving direction. We've had our bargaining survey where we've asked people if they feel that they're making decisions that being pressured to make decisions they would not otherwise have made. And that number is significant for the number of people that feel that that
Are
is the
you
case.
familiar with there was a case recently in the news about an landlord tenant board member who quit due to workplace toxicity, and then he ended up turning around and suing because of workplace toxicity. Everything you just said, it just sounds parallel, very similar. That it scares me because there is severe micromanaging in the cases. And the other thing that concerns me is that, and I just want to give a shout out to this point, is that injured workers, in my view, mistakenly put the blame on the individual case manager, appeals officer, the staff. And it's not that I'm defending them or the system or anything, but I just want to make a very important point that you just raised that point with micromanaging that it almost seems like, and I'm not saying this is true, I'm implying it, that they have considerable pressure to follow not just the policies, the law, and the rules, but other things like, and I remember Richard did the case on pre-existing conditions, which revealed what I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, but a covert policy to suspend and reduce injured worker benefits because of an alleged pre-existing condition. And I think it would help, and I'm just spitballing here, the relationship between injured workers and the staff of the board, if there was something like whistleblower where the staff are coming forward and saying, look, we're being pressured to deny legitimate claims or something. I remember mentioning this to Fred Hahn a long time ago, and he said he would bring it up, but it's a very difficult subject, and I totally get whenever you talk the word whistleblower, there is 100% fear because it's like you're asking somebody, in effect, to give up their livelihood, their job, their life. And it's a big ask because if they
Was,
get caught,
was the toxic
Mhm.
environment addressed in the
No, I would say no. The return to work this week has been extremely difficult. The the public statement from the organization saying that the business has been kept up to date. It's been business as usual over the last 7 weeks. Is clearly not the case. There's significant backlogs and workload problems that have exacerbated. People have typically come into like the people that do this work care passionately about the work that they do. Like they care very deeply about the injured workers. And when they feel like the policy or legislation is unfair, it that has a significant impact on their mental health. And many of them will come in early, work through the lunch, or stay late just to try to do as much as they can to help as many people as they can. And then the next day wake up and they're all worried and anxious about the people that they couldn't get to because of the workload. That has to be fixed. and part of that is through improved training. I'd like to see the organization get back to the training that I had when I started. It was a full 6 months of training, and then gradual acceptance of live active claims
What do they
with
get now?
assistance. Uh, they get a few weeks of training and then practicum experience, and then they're being with oversight from a manager. So sadly, there's a bunch of people in management that don't have the breadth of experience. Whereas when I was started out, all of the managers had all been managers of case managers had all been case managers or adjudicators back then. And I remember the trainers telling us that, if when one, you help that person that has the claim, if their doctor seems like they're not getting them into the right care or treatment, you provide advice and guidance. And also, if somebody had significant back injury, but the x-ray wasn't showing the herniated disc, maybe a push for the CAT scan or the MRI. And then later on, it became the PET scan to see, like, because sometimes the x-ray is not going to show you the problem, right? So you were all of this was taught to you, and then you were also drummed into you is that if everything's appeared equal, benefit of the doubt to the injured worker. Yeah, I don't think that's happening with the training that's going on today, and it needs to get back to where it was. And the commitment made by the organization is that there is a significant overhaul. I know that a couple of people that are active case managers that are involved in the revamping the training. They tell me that they're pretty excited about what's coming, and they think it's going to be a dramatic improvement. So that'll get rolled out in 2026 for case managers and service delivery, and then there will be improved training for those that are in serious injuries program, traumatic mental stress. So all of that is good news, and I think it will help workers significantly. One of the other good things I think is we were told at the bargaining table that there is a 35% turnover rate for case managers, which is shocking. Like, I remember in 2017, when we first filed some of our workload grievances, we were looking at over 12% internal turnover rate in that job. So something is dramatically wrong for that number to be what's happening. So they're looking at what we've negotiated is what we're calling disbandment coverage teams. So we'll need some experienced case managers that'll absorb that work when somebody leaves. And in the interim, this joint workload committee will be kind of peeling back the layers to figure out, what is it that's causing people to leave this role? And what can we do to fix that so that we stop that turnover and we can build up the length of experience in the job? I mean, like
So
the WSIB years ago did a study where they said it took 5 years for somebody to really be at the expert level.
yeah,
And I think the average experience is somewhere around 2 or 3 years in that role.
that's
Let
about
me just
standard.
say for a second that Malcolm Gladwell in one of his books says 5 years to be competent, 10 to be at the top of your game. That was going to be one of my questions. So
Yeah.
you're telling me 2 to 3 years tends to be the average, not five.
That's right.
And also, what about the managers? Like, what do you think is the average length experience for the managers? Because what I find firsthand is that these managers are micromanaging the case managers. The case managers want to give entitlement, but then they come back and say, oh no, something's changed. And then I get a decision that's denying it. So I'm just wondering, is it just we want to deny the claims so that benefits aren't paid? Or is it the manager also doesn't have the experience and then they're micromanaging the case manager? So it's two people that are on the file that are both not experienced.
Yeah, I think it is a double hit. That the people managing the case managers and other roles don't necessarily have the experience that they need to really be competent, fully competent. There are some that are there. There are some that are extremely experienced, and that their team's experience is different than another team's experience.
And
We need to
Harry,
get that brought. Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
to point out an important point, you were saying that the members, the union members, were asking, and you said 7%, but that's over like 2% this year, 2% this year. So it's not 7%, it's 2%. Also, what was it the WSIB gave
No,
them?
it's 7 over 3 years.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the WSIB gave a rebate to employers, what was it, 2.5 billion? And that was
Yeah, 4.5 billion all told.
right.
If you include the free safety programs that rolled out as well.
Right. So, and they have still a surplus, I believe, if you count the future benefit fund, which used to
They,
be
s-
called the unfunded liability, which is about 30 billion. So it's not like we're dealing with a
that's right.
government agency that's on the verge of bankruptcy. They're
Yeah,
actually, as you would say, is very prosperous.
118% funded after the 4 billion of the direct refunds.
So I assume Lang's direction to be tough on claims entitlement is sort of a forward agenda to keep compensation rates low for employers.
I think so. We know the premium rate. I think it's a dollar, either $1.25 or $1.26 for $100 of payroll, which is about the fourth or fifth lowest in rate in Canada. I think that's a big part of it. I guess I've always questioned the direct refunds. I think if you're going to do a reduction, it should be prospective. They'll reduce that assessment rate going forward. But and I think that if I was an employer in Ontario, I'd be very, very frustrated and angry that I'm being charged so much that I'm being overcharged, that I'm getting back whatever it is, 60 or 40% of what I paid. Why not leave that money in my pocket and I can invest that in my organization, maybe expand employment instead of I'm forking it over to you and then you're giving a big chunk of it back to me. That seems
That
like an
that
odd
is
way to run the organization.
it is debatable that the WSIP is giving so much back. Like it's one thing to say, well, my concern is that if argumentatively that the money that they got, that where they got that money from by denying claims or whatever, what if it turns out that was a mistake and now they have to give the money to injured workers? They're then going to have to go to the employers and say, oh, by the way, we need that money back or increase premiums. So that was one area of great concern with that in dealing, like it seems to me there's a disconnect in dealing with the board is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they seem to be very one-sided with you because it's the stakeholders are employers, the government, and injured workers. And the one that seems to be missing is injured workers to saying, are they being properly taken care of? I don't hear Richard doesn't shut up with saying they're not taking care of the workers, and he's right. And that seems to be a problem that right now there isn't enough. Sorry, I get a bit of a cold. There isn't enough research or evidence to establish that there is a serious problem with their policies and that.
One of the things that strikes me today is when staff leave the board because they're frustrated with how it's being run, we don't hear from them as whistleblowers post factum or post employment.
Yeah, I don't
Is
know that
there a
there's
reason
like
for that?
I don't know that there's something that's like rises to the level of the whistleblower situation. Like even when managers are providing direction and advice, um, they're not, from what I can tell, they're not telling the case manager this is what you must do in your decision. This is what I strongly recommend that you do, and then the case manager makes the decision of what they're going to put their name to. So there's pressure, I would say, but I don't know that they're actually saying this is the decision you have to make. So there's that issue. I think when we're talking about the refunds and thinking about the stakeholders, I do feel like the injured workers are not getting their due. I think the significant funding in the organization ought to restore their loss of earnings back to the 90%. I think that the organization should do a hard second thought of or sober look at the practice of deeming. Um, when I worked as a future economics loss adjudicator, we didn't have deeming. We, and I also did the vocational rehab job. I've done a bunch of different jobs in the organization, and I'd like to see it get back to making sure that the whatever we're training the person for is safe and sustainable. That still happens today. Making sure that the program that we are, helping them like with their vocational rehabilitation with is actually available in the community where they live. And if at the end of the program it's no longer available, then we go back to the drawing board because we have to make sure that that person is going to be able to have a sustainable future. And if not, then we have their, ongoing truly true reflection of what their loss of earnings are. So this practice of deeming, I think, needs to go. We need to get the loss of retirement income fund restored. Now it's 5%, used to be at 10%. Maximum ceiling of earnings should be increased.
Yeah.
And all of these things would be far, far less expensive than a $4 billion refund to employers. So working with injured workers to advocate and to do all of that, 100%, we're there with them.
The other problem I
Let
found
me
was,
just ask a
go ahead,
final
Rick.
question, which is everyone still moving to London?
So the official opening, I think, was supposed to be happening this month. I'm not sure if WSIB is on time for that. But the numbers of people there are not the numbers that the organization has earmarked. Although I think in a lot of the job postings going forward, they're focusing or have focused on trying to recruit for the London office. So I think it'll be a gradual buildup over a number of years.
All right, one last question, Paul.
Oh, sorry. I pulled the Freedom of Information request on something I didn't understand when I was an injured worker and then became a paralegal, that there's this status that you might be familiar with called being declared unemployable or employable. And so I pulled the numbers on it. And disturbingly, I found that from 2018, interestingly, a political change occurred till I think it was 2024, 2023. The number of injured workers being declared unemployable by the WSIB literally dropped off to, as the WSIB says, is less than 5. And I'm puzzled because they're saying less than 5 and not 0. So it's just funny that they did that. But it does confirm the factor of what you're saying of deeming. And I mean, I had one example where one client of mine, he was literally 64 and I think it was like 4 months shy of his 65th birthday. And the appeals officer would not declare him unemployable. In fact, said he's to do retraining. And I'm like, this policy that is very disturbing that isn't written. And it's in Butterworth that says that the board's been doing this since 2010.
Final comments from
What's
Mr.
that?
Goslin?
Sorry, final comments on the
Final
deeming?
comments on what Paul just said and
Yeah.
generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think things really shifted, after the Harry Arthur's, review. And then on the heels of that, I think the organization, I remember there was a standing committee that I participated in, and the organization had hired, I think it was Deloitte. I'd have to double check on that, but to kind of look at what or how we were administering some of the legislation. And out of that came a change in practice that led to this new approach of deeming. And I was raising the warning signs, the red flag at that time. And I know I've done the work a different way, and I just feel that the whole practice of deeming should be completely revisited and overturned. I don't know of other organizations, other WCBs that do this either, but I know some of them have the lock-in approach, but not all of them have the lock-in. And if the lock-in's the issue, if that's the concern, then maybe change the legislation that way and manage the case as it needs going forward.
Yeah, I deal with Alberta and Manitoba. Alberta actually has a interim benefit program. So if you're the case manager and you've denied Richard's claim for benefits and he has no income, instead of him going on social assistance, welfare, taxpayer funded, in Alberta, he can apply for interim benefits. So that's an amazing program. It was brought in
Hmm,
by the NDP, and surprisingly, the Conservatives have left it in place. But yes,
interesting.
to answer your question, both Alberta and Manitoba, and I think Saskatchewan does do deeming as well.
Thank you very much, Harry,
Thank you, Harry.
Paul, Pam. See
Thank you.
everybody next week. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you for
guys.
coming, Harry.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All the best.